show. I got chat to them. I made them chat for it.
It's your girl Leah here, and right now my day for drop a hot mix up. Tell me, what would you do? Rabble, straight rabblings.
We have an I-Team update for you tonight. We're now hearing from the NYPD's top cop about an uproar on the Upper West Side. It has to do with hotels converted into shelters for those experiencing homelessness. We first showed you the pictures back on Thursday. You saw some men passed out on the street, addiction, mental health problems in full view. But as the I-Team's Chris Glorioso shows us now, the NYPD says this is not an easy fix.
We clearly have a number of people with mental illness. We have people that are down on their luck and homeless. We got to bring the services, I think, to them.
The images are not pleasant. People passed out on sidewalks, slumped over near restaurant tents, some with hands down their pants.
They also put sexual offenders in these hotels.
The Guardian Angels now pledging more patrols on the Upper West Side. But advocates for people struggling with homelessness say it's not fair to assume all these people are residents of hotels that have been turned into shelters.
Some of us don't want to be in this situation.
Roland Houston says he's a resident of the Lucerne Hotel, and he doesn't like these scenes any more than his new neighbors. When we interviewed him, he was standing on a sidewalk filled with chalk messages welcoming needy New Yorkers to the Upper West Side.
One in particular that said, everyone needs a home. When I saw that, that really touched me.
But some neighbors say this is not about compassion, it's about common sense. Gary Koklari told us the relocating of such a high concentration of homeless men to his neighborhood threatens the Upper West Side economy.
Why don't we take Javits Center? They outfitted it for over 1,000 people with COVID. They can be socially distanced in there. They've got state-of-the-art security.
Gary's part of a Facebook group called Upper West Siders for Safer Streets. The group has now been featured in news stories for days, but even that media attention is raising eyebrows. This group of activists has been protesting the high concentration of drug clinics in Harlem for years. Marie Granville wants to know why temporary shelters on the Upper West Side have attracted so much attention, while permanent methadone clinics in Harlem have prompted no urgency.
The press that the Upper West Side has gotten is definitely a indication of the power and the privilege that Harlem does not have.
A spokesperson for the city's Department of Homeless Services stressed the hotels here on the Upper West Side will serve as shelters only temporarily, and City Hall believes they have saved lives during the pandemic.
Business leaders on the west side of Midtown are the latest group imploring Mayor de Blasio to close hotels that have been converted to homeless shelters during the pandemic. After residents of the Upper West Side called for the same thing, they were criticized for not in my backyard NIMBYism. As Chris Glorioso explains, the Midtown business leaders say this is different.
It is one of the pandemic's vexing problems. Most crime is actually down in Midtown, but videos like this, an unprovoked man slugging a random pedestrian, and scenes like these have fueled a perception that swaths of Midtown West are the Wild West.
The streets feel a little less safe than they were before.
Dan Biederman, Barbara Blair, and Robert Bonfatto are presidents of 3 West Side business improvement districts known as BIDs. They say the de Blasio administration's decision to turn Midtown hotels into temporary pandemic homeless shelters has led to a concentration of social problems like mental illness and addiction.
We must pick up like 75 to 100 needles a day.
Where can we put people where they're free from fear, where they're not living in the streets and defecating in the streets and harassing people in the streets?
The BIDs are calling on the mayor to close down hotel shelters or redistribute them more equitably across the 5 boroughs. They've created this map plotting 20 homeless hotels in Midtown West, and they want to fend off criticism that this is one of those NIMBY, not in my backyard crusades, because these BIDs actually fund homeless outreach teams like this one.
Good morning, sir. Still thinking about coming inside, man?
These social workers are from Urban Pathways, a nonprofit that tries to connect homeless people with permanent housing. On this morning, they found Alex Harper. He'd been living on the street for 2 weeks. He's a veteran of the Korean and Vietnam Wars.
I fought for my country. almost died for my country or bled for my country, and to come home and get treated like this, that's when people will be able to get help.
Homeless New Yorkers are more likely to be victims of crimes than they are to be criminals.
Frederick Schack is president of Urban Pathways. For years, he has called on the city to fund more construction of these buildings with supportive services to not only provide apartments to homeless people, but also addiction and mental health counseling. New York City has a $2.3 billion budget for homeless services. That amounts to nearly $40,000 a year for every homeless person. Schack says that money could fund a lot of rent.
Are we spending that budget to help our homeless population wisely?
So there I would say no. And I've said it for years. The reality is that homelessness is the result of people not having a home, simply put.
The mayor's office has committed to creating 15,000 supportive housing units over 15 years. As for those temporary hotel shelters, the mayor says they will go back to normal.
The mayor continues to say, this is temporary, just be patient. Are you being patient?
Well, no, I mean, we're not patient at all. It's not good enough for a civilized society to say we're not going to take care of people that have mental illnesses and put them somewhere clean and safe.
The de Blasio administration did not respond to several inquiries for this story. In the past, though, City Hall has stressed clearing out those congregate shelters and putting homeless people in their own hotel rooms has prevented infections and saved lives during the pandemic.
Robber, no fear for tell them say you hear it, so remember for like, share and subscribe. Straight Robber Links.